Hey, excuse me, got something in my throat. Hey, good evening and welcome to Freedom Speech and You. I'm your host, Ken. And we're going to start out tonight with something that is not in the title of the show. And we're going to go over that because of the low audience count at the moment. So let's go right to something that Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, did on January 17th. So we'll go to that video. Hello, welcome. So, got the levels set right. Gonna mute my microphone. Not sure when he comes out, so let me go ahead and shuttle this to when he seems to come out, because this is a long video. Right about there.
Oh, great to be back in Bay County. Thank you for sending us back for another term, by the way. We've been pretty busy over the last week. You may have heard some of the stuff. Please have a seat. We've got a great announcements here today. Got some great speakers. We've been pretty busy already. We've been doing a lot of different things, and we're proud of that, and we're not going to let up. And today is yet another example of us leading the way on issues that really matter. You know, they say that we're the free state of Florida, and many people have embraced that. And I've embraced that. But I'll tell you, being the free state of Florida did not happen by accident, because it required us over these last few years to stand against major institutions in our society, the bureaucracy, the medical establishment, legacy media, and even the President of the United States, who together were working to impose a biomedical security state on society. They sought to marginalize people who declined COVID jabs by using.
Now, this is the same governor who couldn't wait to get all of these COVID jabs into the state when it was President Trump. So now he's claiming that all of those COVID jabs that he had to have to protect the seniors back when Trump was president are suddenly not good now that there's a new president. Pay attention to that.
Things like vaccine passports. They sought to prevent people from being able to earn a living if they declined the jab through the Biden employer mandate. They sought to deny children an education if their parents did not want their kids to get.
President Biden cannot mandate what happens in private business. The only place he can mandate anything is in federal government. So don't let this man tell you otherwise.
get mRNA shots. They sought to discriminate against Americans based on vax status by treating them different in their own workplaces. They sought to impose masking requirements on everyone from spectators at sporting events to young school children. And they sought to silence medical practitioners who followed the evidence and backed the science over the narrative. And the fact of the matter is, they had a lot of momentum. They brought a lot of power to these fights, and they would have won, except for the fact Florida said no.
Again, let me reiterate, he didn't say no when he wanted the vaccines when Trump was president. He said, yes, 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 get them here.
Almost 2 years ago, we were the first state to ban vaccine passports in our state. And not just for government agencies, we banned them statewide, so you could go to a movie theater, a sporting event, a department store without having to show your medical papers. We also called a special session of the Florida legislature to ensure that Floridians' livelihoods were protected. We banned mandates in the workplace for COVID shots because nobody should have to choose between a job they need and a shot they don't want. And we
Again, he can ban things that happen in the workplace in Florida, but he's not banning anything that Biden is doing because he's not able, Biden is not able as president to make mandates of people in private jobs. He can only make mandates for jobs that involve federal jobs. So he can only make mandates of that sort.
ensured that was the case in law. We also were one of the first states, if not the first state, to prohibit schools from preschool all the way through our universities from requiring COVID shots of students. We prohibited schools from force masking their students, particularly our K through 12 schools and these elementary schools. We also kneecapped mask mandates imposed by local government, and we granted clemency to all Floridians who were penalized by local government mandates. Maybe not as much here, but you had places like Broward where they wanted to put gym owners in jail because they didn't make the gym people mask. Well, we said not on our watch, and we made sure to protect them. And these were important fights because if you think about it, the more that it became apparent that these masks were not working, the more it became apparent that these mRNA shots were not doing what they promised that they would do. People were still getting infected. You saw it still spread when they said, if you get this, you won't get COVID. As that was happening, you would think that that would be a reason for them to do less of this coercion. But in fact,
okay, again, he's talking about the fact that people got COVID despite the fact that there were shots, but he's ignoring the fact that the virus itself mutates, and so the shots they're getting are not effective against the mutated virus. So again, he's ignoring the scientific facts.
They doubled down and tried to do more of this coercion, and you even had the president of the United States attacking people for not getting the mRNA shot. They were attacking people who had already recovered from COVID and had natural immunity because they did not recognize such immunity. They were not following the science.
Who's attacking people? He attacked students that were on the stage with him who had on masks by their own choice and told them to take their masks off. So if anybody attacked anybody, it was this man, the governor of Florida.
And so even today, you still have in place Biden's vax mandate for foreign travelers flying in to the United States. And you think about it, and I think, and Joe Latipo can talk a little bit more about it, like almost every study now has said with these new boosters, you're more likely to get infected with the bivalent booster.
Only
So
in your world,
possible reason-
DeSantis, not in the world of reality. Not in the world of reality. So he went on and on and on and on. And I think at some point he makes some statement in this thing. I mean, let's just kind of fast forward a little bit. So let's see where the video goes when it comes back. Put myself up while it tries to load that part of the video. But he goes on and on and on and on about the vaccine and everything. So I probably tried to take the video past what portion of the video was loaded. But he just goes on and on and on and on, you know, spreading disinformation. So I guess if you want to see that at the end of the show, we can bring that back, but it's not really going to play right now. So there he goes, spreading that misinformation. I think he had a shorter tweet. So he has a tweet where he says what he did today. So without watching the video, you can see what he did on the 17th based on his tweet. So these are the things that he claimed that he did on the 17th. And he said he announced an initiative to make protections against coercive biomedical policies permanent, including prohibiting COVID vax passports, COVID vax and mask requirements to attend any school, any COVID mask requirements, all discrimination based on vax and booster status. So that's what he claimed to have done. So those are all the things that he claimed to have done on that day. So, and that video is like an hour long because it's an hour something long press conference. So we use a lot of time talking about that. So so what was the chief thing that we had? The chief thing about tonight's show is about the documents. So the chief thing is about the documents. So FBI finds more classified documents in 13-hour search of Biden home. This is from yesterday, updated 6 hours ago. They found more documents in his home in Wilmington, Delaware, including a consensual search. So note that Biden gave consent for them to search for 13 hours to look through the home. Other classified documents were found there earlier this month and in November at a Washington think tank where Biden kept a private office before becoming president. Attorney General Merrick Garland earlier this month appointed a special counsel to investigate Biden's retention of government records after he was vice president. Ex-President Donald Trump is under criminal investigation by another special counsel for taking hundreds of classified records from the White House when he left office. This recent discovery was the fourth time since November that classified records or material have been found at a private address of Biden's. His personal lawyer, Bob Bauer, in a statement said the Department of Justice seized 6 items consisting of documents with classification markings and surrounding material. Joseph D. Fitzpatrick, Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois, told NBC News, "I can confirm that the FBI on Friday executed a planned consensual search of the president's residence in Wilmington, Delaware. Some of the items dated from Biden's tenure in the Senate, where he represented Delaware from 1973 to 2009, and some of the items were from his tenure as vice president in the Obama administration from 2009 to 2017. The question is really, though, how did the records get there? So did he leave them there? Were they placed there by somebody else? Who's been where and when? Because as the former president, Trump is wont to say, people could have come and gone in these places and there's no records of who went where. And so the question is, did somebody plant these documents? So that's the question. We don't know for sure. That's what the investigation should show. So we'll have to wait and see. In addition to those records, FBI agents who did not have a warrant for the search also seized some notes that Biden wrote by hand as vice president, according to the lawyer and the White House. Neither Biden nor First Lady Jill Biden were present during this search, according to Richard Salber, special counsel to the president. The items join other undisclosed number of classified government records previously discovered by lawyers for the president. A small number of classified records were first found by Biden's lawyers on November 2nd at a private office kept in Washington, D.C. at a think tank after ending his tenure as vice president in the Obama administration in 2017. The White House only disclosed that discovery on January 9th. But again, how many people have been there since President Biden? How many people have been in and out of that place? Who could have been there and what could they have done? We don't know. That's what the investigation will show, and it'll find out if somebody else has been manipulating these documents. On December 20th, a small number of classified records were found in the garage of Biden's Wilmington home. A single page of the classified material was then found at the Wilmington residence on January 11th. Then the next day, 5 more pages of classified records were found in a room adjacent to Biden's garage when DOJ officials traveled there to take possession of the single page found the prior day. The White House has said that when the president's lawyers found the previous documents, they immediately notified the National Archives and Records Administration and the DOJ. So immediate notification was given. Friday's search was the first time revealed publicly that federal law enforcement authorities have conducted a search for government documents at Biden's private addresses. Attorney General Merrick Garland earlier this month appointed a special counsel to investigate Biden's retention of government records after he was vice president. Former President Donald Trump is under criminal investigation by another special counsel for taking hundreds of classified records and other government documents from the White House when we left office. Trump is also being eyed for possible obstruction of justice by stonewalling efforts by government officials to recover those documents. We've talked about that before. The FBI in early August raided Trump's home at his Mar-a-Lago club in Palm Beach, Florida, where they found thousands of pages of government records. The FBI had a search warrant in that case. By law, presidents and vice presidents must return government documents to the National Archives when they leave office. Biden and the White House have been criticized for the 2-month lag in disclosing the discovery of the first batch of classified documents at the Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement in Washington. That first discovery came 6 days before the midterm elections, when the balance of the political party control of both chambers of Congress was at stake. And critics have asked why searches of other private locations maintained by the president were not conducted until after the White House disclosed the first discovery. Bauer, in his statement Saturday, said the president's legal team offered to provide a prompt access to Biden's private residence to allow DOJ to conduct a search of the entire premises for potential vice presidential records and potential classified material. He said that the offer was made in the interest of moving the process forward as expeditiously as possible. DOJ requested that the search not be made public in advance in accordance with its standard procedures, and we agreed to cooperate. So there, the DOJ made the request to not make all of this public. He said that on Friday, the DOJ completed a thorough search of all of the materials in the president's Wilmington home. And he went into details stating when the search occurred, and that with agreement to the DOJ, representatives of both the personal legal team and the White House counsel's office were present. Authorities had full access to the president's home, which included personally handwritten notes, files, papers, binders, memorabilia, to-do lists, schedules, and reminders going back decades. DOJ took possession of materials it deemed within the scope of its inquiry, including 6 items consisting of documents with classification markings and surrounding materials, some of which were from the president's service in the Senate, and some of which were from his tenure as vice president. So that was detailed earlier. Again, they're just reiterating all that. DOJ also took further review, personally handwritten notes from the vice presidential years. It'd be interesting to see what that's about. Maybe, there's stuff there that says something about him stating that he wanted others to return the documents, and, so there may be notations there, or there may be notes, maybe notes about things that he read from the documents, which would contain information. So the lawyer said, as noted in the statement released on January 14, we've attempted to balance the importance of public transparency where appropriate with the established norms and limitations necessary to protect the investigation's integrity. We've continued to do so throughout the course of our cooperation with DOJ, he said. The president's White House lawyer, Sauber, said in his own statement, the president and his team are working swiftly to ensure DOJ and the special counsel have what they need to conduct a thorough review. Since the beginning, the president has been committed to handling this responsibly because he takes this seriously. So it's really strange in a way that these documents suddenly appear because there's no record of Biden, having other things show up in this manner. And so you have to wonder, was somebody planning these documents? Because, you just have to wonder, did somebody go get these documents? Are these the missing documents that were in the possession of Donald Trump that are in the open, empty folders? We won't know until the investigation is complete. But that's a fair question to ask. Where do these documents really come from? How do these documents really get there? I mean, if you look at the fact that two Secret Service agents who were with President Trump when the allegations are that he tried to reach for the steering wheel on January 6, 2021, that they won't testify, then you wonder how many Secret Service agents are there that are still loyal to Trump? And what would they do in their loyalty to him? We don't know, but hopefully we'll find out. Speaking of Trump, you get this one here. So, President Trump, former President Trump, goes and speaks at the memorial for Diamond. And Ron Filipowski covered it. And Ron Filipowski says, after Silk goes on and on about how much she loves Trump and all the great times they had together, Trump gets up and says this: I knew Diamond, but I didn't know Silk at all. I just learned about Silk. You're fantastic. He really says this. So let's hear it in his own words.
And, the world has lost one of its brightest stars, real star, but I see that we have another star who is equal to, but she stepped up and she is different. I'm serious. I thought I knew them both. I didn't. I knew Diamond, but I didn't know Silk at all. I just learned about Silk. You're fantastic. You're going to carry on beyond anybody's wildest imagination. And
he is just something else. He really is. He says he knew Diamond, but he didn't know Silk. I mean, how could you not know them both? Because every time they appeared together. It's just incredibly strange of him to say such a thing. There's a lot of stuff going on right now about George Santos. So let's talk about some of Santos's claims and why people are talking about his lies and fabrications. So this is a timeline of George Santos fabrications and controversy. And it's probably too small unless we bring it up size. This article on NBC News by Kate Sanfeliz and Liz Brown Kaiser. An accusation that Representative George Santos scammed $3,000 from a GoFundMe campaign for a disabled veteran's dying service dog and new immigration documents showing his mother was not in New York on 9/11, as he claimed, are just latest developments embroiling him in scandal. He has become a household name because of the controversy surrounding his short time in office so far. He's admitted he embellished his resume from where he attended college and his professional background to his Jewish heritage, but says that he has not committed any crimes and that he has no plans to step down. Even so, calls for Santos' resignation have grown within his own party. That's interesting. They're calling for his resignation within his own party. And he's the subject of federal, state, local, and international investigations. NBC News contacted his team with requests for comment about his lies and other allegations against him. In the video here, he denies performing as a drag queen. So here's a timeline mapping out his controversy. November 3rd, 2020, he loses his first bid to Congress to Democratic Representative Tom Suozzi. He concedes 2 weeks later on November 17th. Jan 6, 2021, he speaks at Donald Trump's rally in Washington, D.C., which precedes the attack on the U.S. Capitol, claiming his own election was stolen. He later says in an interview that Trump was at his full awesomeness on that day, his words, but that he did not go on the Capitol grounds on Jan 6. So he spoke there, and then he says he didn't go there. On June 10th, 2021, he announces his second campaign for Congress, running to represent New York's 3rd congressional district. His campaign website biography includes that he graduated from Barrett College and was employed as associate asset manager at Citigroup and at Goldman Sachs. On September 6, 2022, he files his personal financial disclosure report claiming his assets are as much as $11 million. The massive increase in net worth since his 2020 campaign leads the North Shore Leader, a newspaper on Long Island, to raise questions about his finances. On November 8, 2022, he wins his second bid for Congress in a contest that made LGBTQ political history, marking the first time two openly gay congressional candidates have gone head-to-head in a general election. On November 19th, he addresses the Republican Jewish Coalition Summit, saying his election means now there will be 3 Jewish Republican members of Congress, among other references to Judaism. In his 2021 congressional campaign, Santos had distributed a position paper claiming to be a proud Jew. 2 days after that, in an interview with WNYC, Santos says he lost 4 employees in the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando, Florida in 2016. New York Times later reported that none of the 49 victims appear to have worked at various firms named in his biography. So the dude takes lying to the extreme. December 19th, investigation reporting that Santos lied about his resume. Joseph Nuri, Santos' lawyer, dismisses the story in a statement saying Santos was being smeared by enemies at the paper and calls the allegations defamatory without addressing specific claims in the Times reporting. Representatives for Barrick and New York University, where he is also said to have attained a degree, tell NBC New York they have no record of his attendance. Representatives for Citigroup and Goldman Sachs also tell NBC New York they have no record of his employment. So his lies are falling apart. December 21, 22, the Ford reports that Santos' grandparents did not flee the Holocaust, even though his campaign website claimed at the time that his grandparents fled Jewish persecution in Ukraine, settled in Belgium, and again fled persecution during World War II. Report also questions his alleged Jewish ancestry. The Republican Jewish Coalition says it contacted his team in response to the story, saying these allegations, if true, are deeply troubling. You think? New York Attorney General's office says it is looking into a number of issues surrounding Santos. In response, a lawyer for Santos says he has not been contacted by anyone from the Attorney General's office. And Santos himself tweets, to the people of NYO3, I have My story to tell, and it will be told next week. On December 26th, Santos admits to having embellished his resume in several New York media interviews. He tells City and State New York that he embellished his resume and he's sorry, while emphasizing to WABC Radio that he's never committed any crimes in the U.S. and abroad. The interviews are among Santos' first responses to the Times investigation. So he's saying, I can lie as much as I want because I'm a politician, basically. In the other December 26th interview with the New York Post, Santos acknowledges some of the specific fabrications in his resume. He says he did not graduate from Barrett College or any other institution of higher learning. Aha. He says the claims that he worked for Citigroup and Goldman Sachs were a poor choice of words. What's he going to claim there? That because he owed money to Citigroup or something by loaning money or something that he worked for them? I have no idea, dude. This is just crazy. A poor choice of words. And when asked about his claims that his grandparents survived the Holocaust, Santos says, I never claimed to be Jewish. I'm Catholic. Because I learned my maternal family had a Jewish background, I said I was Jewish. Oh, my. So there's the video in there that he makes his admission that he fabricated the truth. December 28, 22, the Nassau County District Attorney opens an investigation into Santos, saying in a statement, quote, the numerous fabrications and inconsistencies associated with Congressman-elect Santos are nothing short of stunning. No one is above the law. And if crime was committed in this country, we will prosecute it, end quote. On December 28th, he appears on Fox News telling host Tulsi Gabbard, I'm not a fraud. I'm not a fake. I've made some mistakes, adding that it's not false that he worked at Goldman Sachs and Citigroup. So one day he says he didn't go do this. The next day he says he does. Dude, you might as well just put your fingers up and go, I'm not a crook. Except that guy was a lot more decent than you. The New York Times reports that Brazilian law, this is on January 2nd, New York Times reports that Brazilian law enforcement authorities intend to revive fraud charges against Santos in connection with an incident in 2008 relating to a stolen checkbook, citing a spokeswoman for the Rio de Janeiro prosecutor's office. NBC News has not independently verified the plans. So he stole somebody's checkbook? Maybe. January 9th, the Campaign Legal Center files a complaint with the Federal Election Commission accusing Santos' campaign of using campaign funds to pay personal expenses and concealing the origins of a $705,000 loan Santos made to his campaign. On the same day, CNBC and other news outlets report that a member of Santos' political team impersonated House Speaker Kevin McCarthy's chief of staff to raise campaign money. Santos' lawyer will not say whether Santos knew a member of his team had pretended to be McCarthy's chief of staff. Dude, really? Going around to pretending to be the chief of staff of your own speaker. Goodness gracious, dude. On January 10th, Representatives Dan Goldman and Richie Torres, both Democrat New York, filed a complaint with the House Ethics Committee over Santos' alleged failure to file timely, accurate, and complete financial disclosure reports. Does that sound familiar? Somebody else of his liking hasn't done that. And so, yeah, and there he is, another Donald Trump-like Republican not releasing his financials. January 11th, Nassau County, New York Republican officials hold a news conference calling for Santos to resign, in which County GOP Chairman Joe Cairo also notes that Santos said not only that he went to Burke College, but he also was a star on the volleyball team. 4 House Republicans follow soon after with their own calls for Santos to resign. Santos rebuffs them, telling reporters, "I will not resign." He also tweets, "I will not resign." On January 12th, he says he will resign if 142,000 people ask him to, in an interview with Representative Matt Gaetz of Florida on Steve Bannon's War Room, referring to the number of voters who backed him in the election. So basically, his claim is he ain't going anywhere unless they vote him out. On January 17th, he's awarded seats on 2 committees after some Republicans and many Democrats warned that seating him on major committees could lead to a national security risk, you think. He is named to the Small Business Committee and the Science, Space, and Technology Committee. Well, you shouldn't be on the Small Business Committee because that ultimately probably decides who gets small business loans. And he shouldn't be on the Science, Space, and Technology Committee either because he would probably, determine like how much money gets spent here and there and try to steer money away from it to put it in other places. Just my feeling. On January 18th, NBC News and other outlets obtained immigration records showing Santos' mother was not in the U.S. on September 11, 2001. You think? And after he claimed that she was in the South Tower of the World Trade Center and survived the 9/11 attacks. On January 18th, a disabled veteran accuses Santos of having taken thousands of dollars raised on a GoFundMe for a service dog to have life-saving surgery. Santos responds on Twitter, reports that I would let a dog die is shocking and insane. That's a separate story that we'll get into tonight. On January 19th, Santos says any claims that he performed as a drag queen are categorically false after a Brazilian drag performer shared on social media an image of herself and another person in drag whom she identified as Santos. NBC News does not independently verify the images. So those are all the claims against him. So I said that we would talk about the dog owner being swindled by Santos. So this is an NPR article. His dog was dying and he needed help. He says he ended up swindled by George Santos. An article by Vanessa Romo from today. There's the vet, and here's this dog. So the caption is on the picture, but I'm sure all of that's in the article. So about 2 weeks ago, Rich Ostoff was watching the news when he suddenly saw a familiar face. The man with dark hair and glasses, and he was walking outside the U.S. Capitol surrounded by reporters. Ostoff says, I didn't recognize him right away, but I knew he crossed me in the past and he had done something awful to me. Ostoff is a Navy veteran from New Jersey. Then suddenly a reporter on the screen yelled something along the lines of, quote, "What's your name today?" And that's when it struck him. The man on the television was someone he'd been introduced to in 2016 as Anthony DeVolder, a man Ostoff says took thousands of dollars of money from a GoFundMe account that was meant for a life-saving surgery for his beloved service dog. A man now known as the newly elected Republican Representative George Santos of New York, who's been caught in a slew of lies and deceptions about his resume, family heritage, and personal life, and who's now under investigation. So Ostov had the following to say: I just keep thinking, how is he a member of Congress, and how does somebody that low rise so high? It was a veterinary technician that suggested Anthony DeVolder's charity to help the dog. In May 2016, Ostov was living through one of the darkest periods of his life, he told NPR. His story was first reported by Patch.com. He told NPR that he was living in a tent in an abandoned chicken coop. He said he was suicidal, and his service dog, an 80-something pound caramel-colored pit bull named Sapphire, was the only thing keeping him alive. Then she got sick. Panicked, Ostov scraped together whatever cash he could and headed to a nearby veterinarian in Howell, New Jersey. Sapphire had a 10-pound tumor and needed an operation. The surgery would cost $3,000. When I heard that, I didn't know what I was going to do, said Ostov, adding that he's now on medication and in group therapy for post-traumatic stress disorder and bipolar disorder. He continued, at least 2 times when I had Sapphire, she saved me from killing myself. I could not think about hurting myself and then leaving her in this world to live with anybody else. With no way to pay for the procedure on his own, it seemed like a miracle when a vet tech at the clinic had the idea to connect Ostov with a supposed nonprofit charity called Friends of Pets United that was run by a man named Anthony DeVolder. The name is one of several that the new congressman has gone by in the past. In 2009, the Queen's Gazette wrote about George Anthony DeVolder Santos announcing his first campaign bid for New York's 3rd Congressional District in Northeast Queens and Long Island, the seat he now holds. The article also states he founded and ran a nonprofit 501c3 called Friends of Pets United from 2013 to 2018. NPR, though, found no records of a registered nonprofit under that name. Santos also appears to identify himself as Anthony DeVolder, the founder of a group he now calls United for Trump, during a Q&A session at an LGBTQ event in 2019. According to Ostov, the two never met in person, but with the veterinary tech acting as a go-between, Santos acted quickly to set up a GoFundMe page for Sapphire. Ostov posted a link to the account on Facebook. Click here to support Sapphire, the veteran rescued by Anthony DeVolder, the headline read. Donations poured in, and by the end of June, the goal had been met. Ostov was elated. Excuse me. But that's when everything went wrong, said Ostov. With the money tied up, Sapphire's condition worsened. Santos closed the GoFundMe account and refused to transfer the money to Ostov. And I really couldn't understand why, said Ostov. Eventually, Ostov got Santos' phone number from the veterinary tech and began calling and texting a phone number that NPR has since connected to Santos. Ostov said the following: Hi, Anthony, I'd like to deal directly with you from now on regarding my baby dog, if that's okay. Her lump is growing to the point where it is really scaring me. This is what he texted to Santos. And he continued, please let me know when and how to contact the vet when you mentioned for ultrasound, I can get a ride. Sanchez was initially responsible, though he insisted he needed to remain in control of the money. He also insisted that Ostov take Sapphire to a veterinarian in Queens, New York, explaining that the charity organization Friends of Pets United often worked with the clinic and had some sort of credit there. Ostov said he remains unclear to him why Sanchez couldn't pay a veterinarian with the thousands of dollars he raised from the GoFundMe fundraiser. It was a big ask for Ostov, who was still homeless and doesn't drive. But Ostov finagled a ride with the veterinary tech and enough money to cover the tolls. Once there, he said the Queen's veterinarian said Sapphire was not a good candidate for the surgery, which was the opposite of what the other vet in New Jersey said. Those are Ostov's words. The relationship with Santos devolved shortly thereafter, and Ostov shared with NPR several screenshots of messages he says are between him and Santos. In them, Ostov pleads with Santos to let him take Sapphire to a local veterinarian. In September and then again in October, a desperate Ostov forwarded Santos the name, phone number, and address of a local animal hospital. So these are his messages. My dog is going to die because of God knows what. That fatty deposit is benign. It needs removal, and I'm sick of being jerked around. I'll take her to another vet, but that cash was raised on her behalf, and it's 3 times the size it was in April. So Santos responded, remember, it's our credibility that got GoFundMe really written badly. The got GoFundMe them SEV, themselves. Okay, it's broken up. They got GoFundMe themselves to contribute. We are audited like every 501c3, and we are the highest standards of integrity. You have to remember every ride and every life you take from volunteers are paid for. Gas, tolls, lunch, all of that. Everyone has collaborated. So that's what Santos wrote back to him. Then in a message dating November 13, 2016, Ostov wrote, my dog is going to die. Okay, so this just reiterates the same thing and gives Santos's response. And so Santos continues, Sapphire is not a candidate for the surgery. The funds are moved to the next animal in need, and we will make sure we use of the resources to keep her comfortable. GoFundMe did not respond to NPR's request for comments. Ostov said he became so desperate that he enlisted the help of a friend. Michael Bull is a retired Marine Corps veteran and Union Township, New Jersey police sergeant. He launched a nonprofit for veterans called the New Jersey Veterans Network. Bull said the following, when I first got involved, I thought it was a simple misunderstanding that could be fixed with a simple phone call. When he got to Santos on the phone, he says Santos claims he planned to give the donations to another charity group. Bull said he told Santos he couldn't do that, and if he didn't want to give the money to Ostov, he should return it to the individual donors. Bull continued, after that, he refused to take any phone calls and basically ghosted me because he knew he was doing something wrong. Bull and Ostov said they thought about going to the police, but, quote, we had such limited information we weren't able to do anything. Sapphire died on January 15, 2017. Ostov said, I had to panhandle and beg just to get the money to euthanize and cremate her. It was awful. I saw this on the news report that he had to do that. Just awful. The congressman calls the allegations a distraction. Calls to Santos' office by NPR went unanswered, but on Thursday he addressed the allegations on Twitter. The reports that I would let a dog die is shocking and insane. My work in animal advocacy was the labor of love and hard work. Well, dude, your tweets say that, but your own text messages say otherwise. He added, over the past 24 hours, I've received pictures of dogs I helped rescue throughout the years, along with supportive messages. These distractions won't stop me. This article goes on to say, among colleagues in the House, Santos has been held at an arm's length as the cascade of revelations about his fabricated biography continues to come to light. We went through all that earlier. What's new in this article, though, is it says constituents in this district staged several rallies early this month demanding Santos' resignation. Meanwhile, local Republican leaders have described him as a pariah and a pathological liar. So it goes into detail about him lying about his graduation, about working at Goldman Sachs. We talked about that earlier. It says something about him owning 13 properties. He doesn't own any. And we talked about his Ukrainian grandparents and not really being Jewish nor not really fleeing the Holocaust, saying that in fact they were born in Brazil and he was raised Christian, not Jewish. We talked about this, he lying about his mother being in World Trade Center. We talked about that that's over $700,000 and where it came from not being explained. But meanwhile, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy did not support a call for Santos to resign, saying the voters have elected George Santos. And on Tuesday, Santos was appointed to those two committees, which we mentioned earlier. Life after Sapphire's death. Osthoff is apoplectic over Santos' political career and seeming success. While he holds Santos responsible for Sapphire's death, he said he tries not to spend too much time thinking about him. That has been harder lately, given how often Santos appears in the news. Osthoff said, "It'll just send me to a dark place, and I don't want to go there." Osthoff's life is stable these days. He has a home, a job, and 2 new dogs that he said make him so happy. "My life's good," said Osthoff. But he does feel obligated to warn others about Santos. He said, "The dog's already gone, and I'm not expecting to get any money back. I just want to see him never do this to anybody else again. I don't want somebody else to feel that way." So that's what he did to that veteran and his dog. He stole from them. Really, really bad. So we talked about McCarthy and what he did just now with Santos, but curious about McCarthy. You know, what kind of deals did McCarthy make? So we have an article for that. This article in the Los Angeles Times goes into 4 deals that McCarthy made as Speaker. So McCarthy became Speaker of the House after 15 times. But how did he get it? To win the votes he needed to secure the gavel, he had to agree to a series of House rule changes that weakened the power of his post. On Monday nights, the House approved those rules, which will govern how the chamber runs until next election. So here's a rundown of the most important concessions he had to make, including but not limited to key changes to House rules. First one is called Letting the Far Right Help Make the Rules. He's reported to have agreed to appoint members of the Freedom Caucus, an ultra-conservative faction of the House Republicans, to important committees such as the influential Committee on Rules. That panel is the main vehicle the Speaker uses to control how debates are conducted and how bills advance in the House. The Rules Committee's extensive powers include the ability to rewrite bills with the approval of the House after they've been voted on by other committees. Members of the panel also decide which amendments, if any, will be allowed on bills that come up on the House floor. The conservative rebels had pushed for more votes with so-called open rules that allow every member to offer amendments. Although there are ways to bypass this committee, it has enormous influence over the success and failure of bills in the lower chamber of Congress. McCarthy's reportedly agreed to appoint 3 members of the Freedom Caucus to the panel. Since the committee will probably contain 9 Republicans and 4 Democrats, the 3 Freedom Caucus members could break off and vote with the Democrats to vote down any rules they opposed. So, he's basically put himself at the whim of the Freedom Caucus, because if they don't like what he's doing, what he's wanting to spend money on, they can basically say, okay, we like this thing by the Democrats, or we don't want to vote with you. So, it just gives them too much power. The next thing he did was making it easy for his fellow Republicans to fire him. McCarthy also agreed to changes that will make it easier for his detractors to start proceedings to unseat him. Just 1 representative can call a vote to oust him. Previously, half the House Republicans were needed. He had initially agreed to a 5-vote threshold. So that's just freaking crazy that he's giving them this much power. Sarah Binder, a professor at political science at George Washington University and a senior fellow at the Brookings Institution, had the following to say: "This is one of the prices that was demanded by the holdout colleagues, so he really had no choice. McCarthy, elected as Speaker, is always going to be on a short leash." Yep, he is. His next concession: making tax increases and new spending easier to block. The new House rules include several provisions that would make it easier to block spending and tax increases. Any member could raise a point of order to block a bill, amendment, or conference report that could increase appropriations or mandatory spending programs, for example, Medicaid or Social Security. Only a majority vote could overturn the point of order. Additionally, an increase in tax rates would require a support of 60% of the House. It's really, really bad, because if we have another pandemic and they need to spend a lot of money, then they could keep them from spending any money. And the House does control the spending. So, there's probably a lot of danger in all of these new rules. The rules also require an increase in the debt limit to be voted on by the House, eliminating a previous rule that raised the debt limit automatically as Congress approved new budget-related measures. So, the Republicans go on and on and on and on about the cost of inflation. And normally the Social Security payments would increase automatically to keep up with inflation, but this could potentially put that in jeopardy. These promises in particular may lead to the GOP-controlled House clashing with the Senate and the White House, which are controlled by Democrats. You think? Yes, it will. Binder told the Times, "These are commitments that McCarthy will have a hard time upholding his end of the bargain because the Senate weighs in and they will have a different view, even probably Republicans." He continued, President Biden is not going to want to sign into law cuts to domestic or defense spending, so the dilemma going forward for McCarthy is it seems to be sort of a straight path to government shutdown. Yes, it does. Guaranteed a vote on congressional term limits. McCarthy has also acquiesced to a vote on a bill that would limit representatives to 3 terms, 6 years in total, and senators to 2 terms, 12 years in total. The Constitution Amendment is a long-standing wish of Republican Ralph Norman of South Carolina, who unsuccessfully sponsored bills on the matter in 2019 and 2021. Norman was one of the holdouts whose vote McCarthy needed to become Speaker. Well, I don't see a problem with term limits because we have these people that stay in there forever and ever and never and never. So, good night, Nick. You have these people in there forever and never and ever. So, not really a problem for term limits. Norman said the following: serving in the House or Senate should be a temporary privilege, not a career choice. And his bill was supported by Marjorie Taylor Greene in the House and Ted Cruz in the Senate. Interesting. With the allure of Washington, it becomes easy over time to lose sight of the constituents back home, said Norman. McCarthy spent 16 years in the House and is currently in his 9th term as congressman. So the article asks, why did he do it? For some, McCarthy's wide-ranging concession to the so-called Never Kevin faction reinforced the caricature of McCarthy as a curious politician who cares more about the gavel than being an effective leader. Yes, because if he gets the gavel, he can say he was the speaker, and if he was the Speaker of the House, he can ask for more money as a person after he's out of office, because he carries more clout as having been Speaker than he would be just being a congressperson. So he's probably thinking about this. Aaron Fritchner, Deputy Chief of Staff for Representative Don Bayer, Democrat Virginia, and a frequent tweeter on the House procedure issue, said the following: at this point, he's made so many different compromises of values, principles, and policies. He just wants the gavel. Yep, he did want the gavel after all this time. For McCarthy, the speakership has been seemingly his landmark political goal for himself, and he is as ambitious as the next politician. Oftentimes it is holding power and not necessarily what you're going to do with that power that makes a difference to these leaders, said Binder. McCarthy acknowledged he had a lot to do to win this post. And in his first speech as Speaker, he said, I hope one thing's clear after this week. I never give up. What happens next, the article asks. The true test of McCarthy's weakened speakership, Binder said, will come when the core issues of governance, such as funding the government to prevent a shutdown or raising the debt ceiling to prevent default, come up later this year. Binder said the following on those core issues, quote, it is problematic to have a leader who is on such a short leash and is having to give away the store to his opponents. So, yeah, he's on a short leash. He will not have nearly the power of those who preceded him as Speaker. Certainly not be as powerful as Nancy Pelosi. Next article is about Vice President Herron speaking about Roe versus Wade on its 50th anniversary. This one's by Gilia Hayward. in NPR. BP Harris commemorated the 50th anniversary of Roe versus Wade decision by imploring Americans to work to enshrine abortion rights into law, says the headline. So she said the following, quote, "For nearly 50 years, Americans relied on the rights that Roe protected. Today, however, on what would have been its 50th anniversary, we speak of the Roe decision in the past tense." She made these remarks at a speech delivered in Tallahassee, Florida today, Sunday. Roe versus Wade guaranteed constitutional right to abortion for nearly half a century. Supreme Court officially reversed it back in June. That immediately rolled back abortion rights in almost half of the states and led to many more restrictions. In speaking in Florida, Vice President Harris delivered a speech in a state which passed a 15-week abortion ban into law. She spoke directly to the anti-abortion rights policies implemented by Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis and state officials. After the Food and Drug Administration changed a rule to allow retail pharmacies to fill prescriptions for abortion pills, Florida's Agency for Healthcare Administration reportedly sent a letter out to pharmacists telling them that dispensing the abortion pill could lead to criminal charges. She said the following, "Here in Florida, healthcare providers face prison for up to 5 years for simply doing their job. And now the state has also targeted medication abortion, even threatened Florida pharmacists with criminal charges if they provide medication prescribed by medical professionals." Harris said Biden administration will work to expand abortion access. The White House has pointed to executive orders signed last year. She continued, "The right of every woman in every state in this country to make decisions about her own body is on the line. I said it once and I'll say it again. How dare they?" President Biden echoed these sentiments on Roe versus Wade anniversary on Sunday. He said the following, "I'll continue to fight to protect a woman's right to choose. Congress must restore the protections of Roe versus Wade in federal law. It's the only way we can fully secure a woman's right to choose in every state." He made these statements. He made this in a statement issued by the White House. Vice President Harris concluded her speech by saying that Biden administration would continue to work to protect abortion rights. She said, quote, "I know this, President Biden, and I agree, and we will never back down. We will not back down. We know this fight will not be won until we secure this right for every American. Congress must pass a bill that protects freedom and liberty." Abortion rights supporters in Congress have failed in previous efforts to pass abortion rights laws at the federal level when Democrats have majorities in both the House and Senate. With Republicans now in the House majority, the federal abortion rights laws have little chance of passing. Yep, unfortunately, they do. It's not going to affect anybody because the Republicans only seem to care about what the Christian right has to say about BSU, and they don't seem to care about the need for abortion among those who have been raped, who've had incest, who have things that may be medically classified as abortion, which I don't consider abortion, such as DNC. And DNC is a life-saving procedure done to remove the dead fetus from the mother when her life would be at risk. And you should be able to do all of these things. You should be not having to go to the state, the government around you in order to get something done that saves the mother's life. You should not have to go to the state to get something done to get rid of a child conceived through rape or incest. And yet they don't seem to care. They only seem to care if, it's done in a certain time frame. Well, rape and incest occur when often a young woman is underage, and it may take some time for her to get into a situation where she can get to somebody who can get her the health care that she needs. So you can't really say that these things have to be done in a 15-week period. And there are plenty of cases where women are pregnant and don't realize they're pregnant until much later. So again, putting a time frame on it is not being good for the health care of the woman. Here's another one. Article in NPR about why Roe was overturned. So this is a article in NPR today about most Americans say overturning Roe was politically motivated. It's found in a poll. Laura Benzoff is the article writer. There are some of the activists. That goes into the detail about today being the 50th anniversary. And this new NPR Ipsos poll finds that 3 in 5 Americans believe abortion should be legal in all or most cases, although they hold a range of opinions when asked about the exact circumstances. The survey conducted this January heard from a representative sample of more than 1,000 adults, including 278 Republicans, 320 Democrats, and 324 independents. Despite the issue's high profile, more than a quarter of Americans do not know what the abortion law is in their state. Americans say politics, not public will, drives abortion policy. Some of the confusion among poll respondents may come from the patchwork of policies now determining abortion rights. Without a federal law in place, state policies are shaped by lawsuits, state laws, and constitutional amendments. The majority of Americans say they would like the decision to be in their hands, not of elected officials. Nearly 7 in 10 of those surveys say they would strongly or somewhat support their state using a ballot measure or voter referendum to decide abortion rights, and if they had the option, rather than leaving the decision to the lawmakers. So the people want to be able to decide this for themselves. So the distrust in the politicians was reflected by NPR interviews with survey takers who have a variety of views on abortion policy. Felisa Jackson, age 24, a nurse in Ohio, said the government needs to butt out when it comes to this issue. She states that she does not identify with either major political party. When asked if she feels represented by her state lawmakers, she categorically says, absolutely not. %58 of respondents say they think lawmakers are making abortion policy based on what donors and their base want, not what the majority of the public wants. You think? Yep. Because the donors' money decides what gets done. They also voice this disconnect when evaluating federal officials making calls about abortion rights. In even larger numbers, 62% of respondents say the U.S. Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe versus Wade was based more on politics than on law. 60% of respondents say they thought the Roe decision was correctly decided in 1973. Let's emphasize that 60% say they thought the Roe decision was correctly decided in 73. When asked about the abortion law in her state, poll respondent Christine Guzman, a 69-year-old retired teacher in Ohio, says it's way too strict. It's a bunch of men deciding how women should live their lives, and I don't approve. I don't approve either, Christine. Across all political affiliations, 60% supported being legal. Currently, abortion is illegal and heavily restricted in at least 14 states. Those restrictions are at odds with what the majority of Americans want, according to the poll. So the poll results are as follows. 26 say abortion should be legal in all cases. 34% say the procedure should be legal in most cases. 28% say that procedures should be illegal in most cases, and 9% say abortion should be legal in all cases. Interesting. Only 9% say it should be illegal in all cases. Many of the survey takers interviewed by NPR say they're uncomfortable with absolute bans, even if they believe abortion access should have some guardrails. There's a place for it and a place not for it, said Jackson. She said she supports restrictions on abortion access, but not without some exceptions. Trevor Casper, 31 of Ohio, said, I definitely feel more comfortable with some exceptions rather than a total ban. He says overall he's not pro-abortion rights, and in the ideal world, he concluded, abortions wouldn't be allowed except for the extreme circumstances. When asked what the law should be, the largest number, 36%, still say abortion should be legal with very few or no restrictions. I'd be interested in knowing what Trevor Casper thought were the extreme circumstances. That'd be interesting to know. Elvira King, 55 of Oregon, said, it's our bodies. The government shouldn't have any say what we do with our bodies. King said she has 2 ectopic pregnancies where the fertilized egg implants outside the uterus, which had to be terminated to save her life. That experience made her an abortion rights supporter, but King says would not mind some restrictions on procedures later in pregnancy. Well, always the anti-abortion people always say that there's all these procedures happening in the 9th month. And there just aren't that many cases of anything happening in the 9th month unless something goes tremendously sour, and in which case it's not really an abortion, it's a life-saving procedure. So, they act like there are cases of people aborting a baby after carrying it for 9 months. No, please. What kind of woman would carry a baby for 9 whole months just to wait to abort it? Do you know anybody that would carry a baby for 9 whole months just to abort it? I don't. No woman would want to go through that for 9 months, waiting and waiting and waiting. But these kinds of laws potentially build a scenario where a woman might have to wait 9 months to get through a legal battle in order to get the procedure that she so well deserves. The other thing going on in Florida is DeSantis and his never-ending battle against critical race theory, or what he calls critical race theory. So in the latest, detailed in this article by Juliana Kim, Florida says AP class teaches critical race theory, but this is what's really in the course. Florida Department of Education, which I'm going to shorten to DOE if it appears multiple times in this article, So the DOE has rejected an advanced placement course covering African American studies, saying the class indoctrinates students to, quote, a political agenda. As submitted, the course is a vehicle for political agenda and leaves large, ambiguous gaps that can be filled with additional ideological material, which we will not allow, said Brian Griffin, Governor Ron DeSantis' press secretary. But scholars who were involved in creating the curriculum say that's far from the truth. Christopher Tinson, the chair of the African American Studies Department at St. Louis University, told the following to NPR. There's nothing particularly ideological about the course except that we value the experiences of the African people in the United States. The article continues, the course is the latest addition to the Advanced Placement Program, which helps high school students earn college credit. The class is currently undergoing a pilot phase. 60 schools were participating in that trial, one including at least one high school in Florida. But officials have taken issue with the possibility that the course would teach about Black Lives Matter and the reparations movement. The state's rejection of the class comes as a wave of states attempt to censor the topics of race and sexual orientation in public schools. DeSantis has been particularly combative on the issue. In 2022, he signed the Stop Woke Act, which, among other things, sets limits on how race may be taught in classrooms. But what's really in the course, the article gets into. The purpose of the class is to introduce students to the experiences and contributions of African Americans through a variety of lenses. Tinson said the following, we didn't want to just focus on slavery, although slavery is part of it. We wanted to give a comprehensive view of the culture, literature, historical development, political movements, social movements. Tinson said the course will explore the origins of African diaspora to Reconstruction, the Harlem Renaissance, the Civil Rights Movement, and then some. It will also examine some historical trailblazers like Valerie Thomas, a scientist who invented the illusion transmitter. That's an interesting thing that I should look up. So let's see what that is. Illusion transmitter. Okay, it says illusion transmitter uses two parabolic mirrors to transmit 3D illusions of an object by use of a camera trained on a first mirror, which then sends video signals to a projector aimed at second mirror, developed for the purpose of sending three-dimensional images across a distance, making them look as though they're in front of the mirror. The technology is still used by NASA, is being adapted for use in surgery as well as for televisions and video screens. Interesting. Sounds like a form of a hologram. Tinson is particularly excited for students to have a fuller grasp of the Haitian Revolution, which Tinson argues tends to be underrepresented in history classes compared to American and French revolutions, despite being the most successful slave revolt in world history. What's not in the course? Among the concerns that Florida officials have raised is whether the course will teach critical race theory, a legal framework that argues racism is not just the product of individual bias, but is embedded into legal systems and policies. Florida rejected an AP course filled with critical race theory and other obvious violations of Florida law, says Florida Education Commissioner Manny Diaz Jr., and this is what he wrote on Twitter on Friday. He continued, we probably require the teaching of African American history. We do not accept woke indoctrination masquerading as education. Those are his words. But Tinson denied accusations that the theory will be taught in the course. While the class will explore the issue of inequality, the framework itself is too advanced for high school students, even in a college level course, according to Tinson. So this has been said over and over again that CRT is not taught to high school students, regardless of whether they're in advanced placement or not. And yet the Republican Party keeps coming back and over again tries to claim that anything that teaches about African American studies is inclusive of CRT. African American Studies is not the first time that the advanced placement program has offered a class on communities, history, and culture. In fact, there are courses on European history, German history and culture, Chinese history and culture, and more. As a result, there's a standard and format to how these curriculums are shaped to serve the best interests of the students. The College Board told NPR that the African American Studies course has been nearly a decade in the making. Tinson said the following: the reason why this is even an important area of study is because of the historical erasures of historical records in public schools of African experiences. This is one small step to resolve that gap. So it does not contain CRT, but the state tries to say that it does. And so that is what's going on, you know. Okay, we talked about this earlier. So this will reiterate in case some of you missed the topic earlier. But we were talking about the Biden documents. And Glenn Kirshner had the following to say on his Twitter account. Biden invited the DOJ to do a complete search of his home to make sure all docs were returned to the National Archives. Trump refused to give the docs he took to the National Archives, the DOJ, or the grand jury. Trump obstructed justice. Biden facilitated justice, full stop. So that's Glenn's opinion, and it is a very good one because it is a truthful opinion of the difference between the two cases. So that was one of the things that we were covering for tonight. We haven't heard too much about things lately. I know a few months back, Biden got a new press secretary, but now there's this article that Biden's getting a new chief of staff. Biden's getting a new chief of staff. Jim Zients will replace Ron Klain. Article by Tim McKeith today in NPR. The president selected Jim Zients as his next chief of staff, choosing his former COVID-19 response coordinator to take over from Ron Klain, who was preparing to leave the White House sometime after the State of Union address on February 7th. The transition comes after 2 years where the administration notched some significant legislative wins, but ahead of 2 years of looming investigations from Congress and a special counsel. The news of this shift came on a weekend rocked by the extraordinary revelation that the FBI had spent more than 12 hours going through Biden's personal belongings in his Wilmington, Delaware home, finding more classified documents. A special counsel probe into the classified documents found in Biden's personal files, some from his years as vice president, others dating back to his time as senator, is one of the challenges that will face the White House as Zients takes over. So we talked about all that before. The White House has been criticized for uneven public disclosure in the matter, even as Biden has been defiant. He has no regrets about how the issue has been handled. Zients will manage the White House as Biden weighs whether to make good on his intention to seek a second term in office, and as the White House prepares to face a series of congressional investigations on issues ranging from the business dealings and personal problems of Biden's son Hunter to the migrant crisis at the southern U.S. border. Zients was someone who also helped the Obama White House manage a crisis. Biden's pick as Zients was first reported by Washington Post, was confirmed by two sources familiar with the decision who spoke under condition of anonymity because the White House has not yet commented on the upcoming departure of Klain. The exact date for the transition is not clear. Zients, an early hire on Biden's transition team, developed a strategy unveiled on Inauguration Day to get Americans vaccinated for COVID-19. He held the response until April 2022 and has close ties to Biden's other top advisors and cabinet members. A management consultant before he entered public service during the Obama administration, Zients was the acting head of the Office of Management and Budget when he was pulled in to fix the healthcare.gov website in 2013. Zients told author Chris Whipple for his new book, The Fight for His Life Inside Joe Biden's White House, that being able to deliver on plans is key. He said, quote, "A lot of time, energy, and creativity go into making policy, whether that's legislation or executive action, but sometimes in government, not enough time and energy and creativity go into execution." Klain helped Biden notch his big legislative wins. The Zients will be charged with making sure the White House implements several sprawling pieces of legislation, the pieces of Biden's agenda that Klain, a powerful behind-the-scenes manager, helped usher through Congress. Klain worked closely with Democrats to get sweeping spending bills for COVID aid, infrastructure, semiconductor manufacturing, and climate incentives through Congress, and helped the party defy the odds and maintain control of the Senate in midterm elections. His victories came despite the president's own stubbornly low approval ratings. Klain's leadership was sometimes second-guessed, particularly after the tumultuous withdrawal from Afghanistan and amid persistently high inflation. Klain was the one who advised Biden on the strategy for the midterms. Author Chris Whipple, who spoke with Klain for his new book and has studied White House chiefs of staff, said Klain stands out as one of the most successful chiefs in recent history. So why get rid of him? That's a question. Whipple said the following: his greatest asset is his relationship with Joe Biden. You have to be able to work closely with the president. You have to be able to manage him. You can't really be too close to him. You can't be a friend because you have to be able to tell him what he doesn't want to hear in a decisive moment. And that's a very fine balancing act. And I think Ron Klain has been able to do it. One of these moments came ahead of the 2021 midterm election when Biden wanted to go everywhere and talk about, I think they made 2022 midterm elections, even though they wrote 2021. When Biden wanted to go everywhere and talk about everything, essentially, and try to help his party, when Whipple said, instead, Klain and Biden's political team convinced the president to focus on a narrow list of states and two main issues: reproductive rights and the threat posed to democracy by MAGA Republicans. Klain felt vindicated by the election results, Whipple said, describing an email he received from the chief of staff after it was clear Democrats did far better than expected. Klain said the following in an email: "Maybe we don't suck as much as people thought." There was a point where Klain almost quit. The job of chief of staff is all-consuming. Whipple said the following: "There's a reason why the average tenure of a White House chief is only 18 months. I put the word only in there, but you get that. In October 2021, the low point in Biden's presidency, when it seemed that his Bush or his Build Back Better agenda had failed, Clinton wanted to quit. Whipple said Biden was on his way to UN climate summit in Glasgow, empty-handed when Whipple visited Clinton at the White House. Whipple said, Ron said to me at that point that he was exhausted and he was thinking about leaving. That's how relentless and grueling and exhausting that job can be. I'm amazed that any of these people stay in the White House for any number of time, because they're constantly attacked by the media, they're constantly attacked by the opposition party, and it's like they're never given credit for all that they do, except maybe in articles like this, and except maybe when presidents speak up about them. But Clinton's wife, Monica Medina, a high-ranking State Department official who works on climate and environmental portfolios, convinced him to stay on, Whipple said. She said Clinton concluded he needed to see Biden through the midterms. Well, thank you, Monica Medina. Zients is seen as less political than Clinton. Clinton is a prolific user of Twitter, describing the platform as his hobby. David Cohen, a political scientist at the University of Akron who studies chiefs of staff, said Clinton uses Twitter to defend and promote his boss. Maybe he should. I mean, his boss is constantly being attacked. Maybe he should do that. But I guess some people don't want these people to resort to Twitter. And yet it's perfectly all right for the Republicans to resort to Twitter. I mean, heaven forbid we take away Republicans' Twitter account. They'd go crazy when we do. Cohen said the following: one of the roles of the chief of staff is to essentially catch the javelins that are thrown the president's way, and that's one thing that Ron Clinton uses Twitter for. Yep, a good person there to support the president should support the president and should fight wherever necessary. That's my opinion. Clinton is widely respected in Democratic circles, but often reviled on the right, with some Republicans referring to him as Prime Minister Clinton, suggesting he was the unelected, powerful puppet master pulling the strings behind Biden. Oh, give me a break. Give me a break. If you want to say that there's somebody pulling Biden's strings, then who the hell pulled all of the strings for Trump when Trump was out walking around the golf course all the time? Who did that? I guess it was Jared. Jared must have been the puppet master. He was also known to run a tight ship with limited leaks. He was more prepared for the job than most, having worked under 9 former chiefs of staff and having served as the chief of staff to 2 vice presidents, Al Gore and Biden himself. He's worked for Biden on and off for decades, starting his political career as an intern in Biden's Senate office. Zients, who has strong relationships in the business community, does not tweet. During his time as the COVID response coordinator, he presided over heavily scripted updates on Zoom to outline how the administration was making progress on its vaccination goals. Well, expect the fact that he was on the COVID response team to be the number one thing that Republicans claim is wrong with him, because that's what they'll do. Go, oh, this is that dude from the COVID response team, and they'll just say, why is he Biden's new chief of staff? Zients has close ties to Biden and his inner circle, but his beauty is someone who will leave the political part of the job to other longtime Biden advisors, including Kane, who is expected to remain involved from outside the White House. Okay, so if they expect Clinton to remain involved outside the White House, then that almost suggests to me that they expect Clinton to come in and be the new pundit on one of the talk shows. That's what I think is probably going to go on. Is he'll probably be the new pundit on the talk shows, and maybe that's what they really want. Maybe they're just trying to take Klain out of there, let him get out there, let him get on the talk shows, and let him work from there. I don't know. Okay. Do y'all have topics? Looking at your topics. Some of you asked about the video that started out the show. No, we weren't going to watch that for the whole hour. And one of you brought up that on April 20th, 2020, officials in Florida directed Medical Examiners Commission to stop publishing information about COVID-19 deaths in the state. Yes. Always the comments about the green screen effect. We won't talk about the Republican assertion that Hunter Biden did this or Hunter Biden did that. And we will see, as I said earlier, that the investigations will reveal what records were there and what classification that was. So yeah, I welcome investigation because investigation will probably show that there's nothing to do with all of these Biden documents. Do we think they'll search for Obama, Bush, and Clinton? They might. The Republicans might ask for that. One of you asserted that Trump's fingerprints are all over this. Possibly, yes. Wes said Clinton already has this library. You can be sure that Obama and Bush have documents stored that have classifications. ADM FLAGURL 38 says, I think the documents were planted. Come on, Biden has a 40-year clean record with the government. Why would he ruin his career by having documents in his possession? I don't think he would. Wes Webb said about the statement regarding Trump that he didn't know Silk. Maybe that's because he wants Silk to have plausible deniability. Possibly so. Rosebud said, I think we knew that it was going to turn into a Trump rally. Nice thing to say to a grieving person. I didn't even notice you. Exactly. I believe Nick Rich, who is not here anymore, said the good news is the gross shit they are spewing is not being swallowed without complaint. Yeah, the stuff that Santos is trying to say. Wes says, how could the dog GoFundMe not be illegal? I don't know. They should really be able to do something about that. And I guess it's not illegal to lie about yourself when running for office. There is no, there's no, what's the word I'm looking for? There's no law that applies to normal advertisements where you have to be able to assert your claims as truth. There has to be truth in your claims, or there has to be a clause letting you out of such claims. Like, you always say, if you don't like this product, double your money back. Yeah, you'll get double your money back, if you want to go the route to get your money back, but you'll spend the money in the first place. And a lot of people will not admit their embarrassment, and so won't ever, apply to get the money back. And so they know they're going to make money. And not only that, when you have a commercial product and you're getting the money up front, what are you doing with that money? You're taking that money, you're depositing that money, you're making interest on that money. And so in the 90 or so days before they give you your money back, they've already made money on your money. What have you made on your money? Nothing. There are no rules like that that apply to politics. So as far as what he says in politics, they probably can't prosecute him on it unless there are rules within the Republican Party that say that there is a certain level of character to be followed. Now, if those rules exist in the New York 3rd District, then they can prosecute him on it. But the business with the stealing of the money that was earmarked for the dog, they may not have commented yet, but GoFundMe should be able to help them prosecute on that. That's theft. That should be prosecutable. Rosebud says he's a congressman now. He's above the law. To some people, he is. To the people in his own party who want him to do whatever. And Besler says, I hope multiple teams are going over his campaign funds. I'm sure that's where his true character will be revealed. Yeah, he's going to have to show where that money came from. Wes Webb says he was just showing how stupid people are. I'm not sure if that's directed at Trump or if that's directed at Santos. Lindsay asked, can anyone name a decent Republican out there? Back in the days when the KKK was in the Democratic Party and not the Republican Party, you could find decent people back then. But that's long over. West said, I didn't know Biden's chief of staff until he resigned. Republicans steer small business loans to specific groups or businesses. Yes, West Webb, that's why he shouldn't be on the small business. West says, I like Adam Kinzinger, although I had arguments about the Pentagon in the Middle East. Well, Kinzinger has been pretty good on the Jan 6 committee. But obviously, yes, he's not good on everything. Would Santos' replacement be appointed by a governor or a special election? There's a chance someone worse could show up. Depends on who the governor of New York is and what the rules are, embezzler. So we'd have to look into that. So hang on to that thought about what would happen if Santos is out. So I'll hold up a finger to remind myself to look that up. Governor could replace him with a Democrat, says Wes. Likely a Republican winning again would be unlikely, says Wes, in a special election. Jim says unless he's convicted of something, he won't be leaving the house. EDM Florida Girl 38 says happy birthday to Steve Perry of Journey. Yes, Steve Perry's birthday is today. Jim says the GOP will not kick Santos out. We do not have any guests tonight, not that I know of, unless one suddenly shows up from the production team. Jim says none of these proposed bills have any chance of passing in the Senate. Term limits are the stupidest idea. So that's two things I want to ask about. WW is going to be 66 in a week and 2 days. Your birthday's coming up. Oh. I think I got a message from the production team, so hang on a second. Let me check that out. Okay, got emails to check. I just wanted you to know that I actually will read some of your chat, so that's why I delved into all the chat, since I was really eager to go through the content of tonight's show. So we have email here to look at. Yeah, I know. The chat's really old. The chat's from like an hour ago. Problem is, when you have a show where you're supposed to get some of the input from the audience, and you don't because you're busy reading all the stuff you really want to read, it means you kind of have to go back in and just kind of look at it. And I don't look at the chat necessarily live. I scroll through it. So Nancy Pelosi said, today we should be commemorating 50 years of Roe v. Wade, but the Republican-controlled Supreme Court tore up this landmark ruling last summer, jeopardizing the health, freedom, and safety of women across the country. We must keep fighting to enshrine Roe into law. So she tweeted that today. Okay, let's see where we go. Can see if we have anything. WW says, hard to arrest a congressman when Congress is in session. That was directed at Santos. You can bet the FBI has their eye on him. Every week there seems to be a new investigation on Santos at this point. What hasn't he done? Exactly. He also says he's anti federal marijuana laws but smokes pot himself. That's an interesting one. One out of 5 voices in my head said Biden is a sane individual. What are the other 4 saying, I wonder? There's only one voice in my head, and it always says Biden is a sane individual. What was in the email was the Nancy Pelosi tweet. Nick Rich says, I like my name in highlights. Am I in vain? Yes, you're not in vain, Nick Rich. You got your name mentioned. Okay, so just a couple of things from chat. So here comes the one team. This one is about Gary Lake and her feelings on the election. She's still out there ranting and ranting. Abe won, I won, she says. The red wave happened. Really? Did you spill some red Kool-Aid in your house or something? The corrupt Arizona swamp ran corrupt elections, stealing our state government from the people and trampling on our sacred vote, she says. Nope. And this is the Abe she's talking about. Abe Hamada says it is indisputable that I received the most votes in the Attorney General's race. The outstanding uncounted ballots are proof. My case has and always will be to ensure that every lawful vote counts. Tune in tonight. And he has a thing that he reference this. So Twitter space. These people just can't stop talking about the election. They can't accept the fact that they lost. They just keep going on and on and on. So here comes another one. Okay. Bannon denounces Trump adding Lindsey Graham to his leadership team and doing a South Carolina rally with him this week. Said Bannon, I have no earthly idea why he's around Trump. He's a cancer. Trump's got to be warned. There's nothing good with having McConnell's mini-me, the snake, around you at all. And if you want to see the video, there's the video. So you want to see the man in his own words.
That's metastasizing. The collection of senators led by Lindsey Graham, which I have no earthly idea why he's around President Trump. He's a cancer. He is a cancer that's metastasizing. And President Trump's got to be warned. There's nothing good that comes from having, Mitch McConnell's mini-me, the snake, Lindsey Graham around you at all. Collection of senators led by Lindsey Graham, which I have no earthly idea why he's around President Trump. He's a cancer.
Okay, so there you go. And hopefully that music that he was playing in the background doesn't lead a copyright strike, and hopefully we didn't get knocked off with that music on. Yeah, Jim, I know you don't like Ron, but our producers do, so you gotta see some of that stuff every once in a while. So, yeah, Bannon turns on Lindsey. Bannon turns on anybody that he thinks is not supportive of Trump because Bannon really loves Trump. Whereas Mr. Bannon is a ray of sunshine. Yeah, embezzler. So, yeah, Bannon turns on Lindsey Graham. Comes another one. Jim says, I know I can't have perfect all the time. Well, the thing is, Jim, if there's somebody that you want to see me read a quote from, all you got to do is pick the time when I'm actually reading the chat and say, I want to see such and such, and we'll get that for you. So So this should be interesting because this is something that McCarthy has supposedly said recently.
I will never use impeachment for political purposes, but I will definitely follow the truth and the facts of wherever it takes us. And I am tired of having America wide open, because you know what else you get with a wide open border? More people dying from fentanyl. Just in my home state, just up from my house, we just had a cartel-style killing, even a baby being shot in the face based upon.
Okay, so we see this over and over again. The Republicans talk about how Biden has broke this all-kind border crossing record. But what we don't see them detail is the way in which they count those things. Because Trump basically had a policy to take the people that came in and send them back immediately and keep them out or detain them so they couldn't go anywhere for long periods of times. And now, people come in, they get checked in, they send them back eventually, and same people come back over again and get counted again. So the numbers keep going up because the same people are counted multiple times. They never detail that.
Upon what's happening on this border. 300 more Americans will die today because that border is not secure. American public has trusted us with the majority, and we will get to the bottom. I will never use him.
Jim said U.S. citizens bring in fentanyl for U.S. citizens. Yes, they do, Jim. The ones that want to get rich off the deaths of other people do. So, it'd be interesting to try to hold him to that word that he says he's not going to use impeachment for political gain, because he most definitely is going to. Embezzler says much of the fentanyl is delivered by DHL and the United States Postal Service. Possibly, yes. Jim says if they're entering through the border gates, they're not illegal. Exactly. But the point is that when you catch people over and over again, it doesn't prove anything other than you caught them. WW says of the drugs that comes in like any other market by the quickest, easiest, cheapest route. Yep. Kasser says Tories use the same narrative calling asylum seekers illegal immigrants. And that's unfortunate. You're dealing with the same type of conservative mind games over there in the UK. And I don't even like to call them conservative because they don't conserve anything that's good about their locality or their nation. I don't think they should be allowed to call themselves conservatives. Jim asks, how many of these crossers will go on to rebuild devastated flood areas? There's a discussion about Ron Filipowski. You know, Filipowski is still at times a Republican, so that is just kind of the sort of thing, you know, that happens. He's going to have a different look at way of looking at things. What's essential is to talk about the topics and express our own opinions about the topics, not necessarily agree with a particular person who's writing something. Jim says, our economy needs these low-wage workers to do the work that citizens won't do. Yeah, that's the problem, Jim, is that the Republicans don't realize that. They push all of these people out that they don't like, and then they wonder why inflation happens or items don't get delivered. They don't stop to think that you know, what they're doing to themselves with their policies. Really need this weekend to end. My latest painting captures the true love of the president and Melania Trump, whose inspiring romance makes us all our hearts melt like butter. Oh my goodness, what a mess. That's got to be a parody account, yeah. That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. Pretty funny. Casper, it would be interesting to read the things that go on in your country and see the videos and such. At times, I've actually watched other news that comes from other countries on a public broadcast channel that has news from those other countries. Okay. WW says we have the best unemployment rates in years up here in northern Illinois. Still, we have some people who are homeless. Yeah. It's It's unfortunate that people are homeless. Sometimes people don't have the skills that they're looking for. Sometimes there are restrictions on jobs that say you can't hire this person or that person because they have a felony, and sometimes things are made felonies that shouldn't be felonies, which keep people from being employed. Jim says West Illinois has such a great support network. If people are homeless, it's their choice. Elizabeth says no, it's not their choice. Yeah, there are definitely things that that come up that are not the choices of the people that end up being not employed. Elizabeth said the system's designed to keep some people down. Yes, unfortunately. Tonight's cuteness segment is coming up. So this is tonight's animal cuteness segment. That's pretty cool. Okay. Got an article coming up about Manchin. This one is a video submission. Has a preface by Aaron Rupar, a journalist on Twitter. Joe Manchin on Meet the Press on Biden and classified documents, quote, "It's just hard to believe that in the United States of America we have a former president and a current president basically in the same situation," end quote. With Aaron Rupar noting Biden and Trump are not, in fact, in the same situation. But here comes Manchin again to align himself with the Republicans instead of the Democrats.
Welcome back.
Chuck, it's always good to be with you.
Look, I want to get into the debt ceiling. I want to get into all this stuff, but we got some developments overnight with this classified documents. An FBI search. White House said it was coordinated with the FBI, but we now had an FBI search into former President Trump's. Now we have an FBI search into President Biden's residence. What's your assessment of how the president has handled this situation?
Well, I mean, it's just hard to believe that in the United States of America we have a former president and a current president. They're basically in the same situation. How does this happen? You know, only thing I can tell you, Chuck, is when I go into the SCIF with the secured documents, they always ask, "Are you clean when you walk out?"
Yeah.
They want to make sure you're not carrying anything out. You know, and it might be a mistake. You might just put it in your other papers, but you double check right there. So that to be held accountable and responsible is what we all are. And to put those in unsecured spaces is irresponsible.
Do you see similarities or do you see more differences in how President Trump versus how President Biden?
I'm not going to make that decision, but I think that Merrick Garland did the right thing by putting a special counsel.
You do.
And I think that we should wait until the special counsel rather than making this a political circus. Let them find out the facts. What was one more damaging? Are they both about the same? Did not cause any problem? Or is one more reckless and irresponsible than the other? I can't answer that question, but I think the special counsel will do a better job than the politicians and the political circus that is going to follow.
President Biden said he had no regrets in how he handled this. Do you have any advice for him on how he should handle this?
Oh, I think he should have a lot of regrets. Yeah, I would think that. I said, whoever's responsible. I mean, if I hold people accountable, and I use whether it be my chief of staff or my, my staff that we're doing this, and I'm looking at, then I'm going to hold someone accountable. But basically, the buck stops with me.
So you think he should be out there and look, I messed up. Maybe I didn't do it. Just say it. Just fall on your sword here.
We're all human. Yeah. We make mistakes. I can tell you, I don't think anyone intended. He sure didn't intend for it to fall in wrong hands and use it against our country. I know they didn't intend that to happen. Could it have happened? I don't know. And yeah, you just might as well say, listen, it's irresponsible. It was something we should have had a better check and balance on.
Now, former President Trump defied a subpoena. So in that sense, the way each has handled it is different. Do you acknowledge that?
Absolutely, much different than the other. One's saying, okay, I hope I didn't make any mistakes. Right. I hope no one was compromised. I hope we didn't hurt our country. And the other one's.
Okay, so at least he said that. At least he said that there is a difference. But for a moment there, I was wondering if he was ever going to say that. So. Good night, Roberta. And Nick Rich, in case you don't return, have a good night. Manchin basically like putting Biden on the block there, saying he's guilty, so to speak, except then he goes and says that you got to wait and see how the investigation goes. But so this is the latest thing on this Mr. Santos. Looks like the things just keep going down the drain with him. Travis Bone says, "Wait, he has kids?" Santos wrote 12 minutes prior to Travis's 9:30 p.m. tweet. "Your job and mine are indeed a privilege and awesome honor, Sean Castle. I love to work with anyone on the issue plaguing our country so we can leave a better country for our kids than when we found it." So it's like, he's claiming to have kids. So what's he quoting from Sean Castle? That'd be curious. Sean Caston said, "Your job and mine are amazing privilege. You have the opportunity to pass along to your successor in a little better condition than you found it. To acknowledge how lucky you are to be in this seat, to serve. It's bigger than you. Show some respect." And so he was responding to, "Looking forward to be back on Capitol Hill this week to serve MYO3. I am a surprise for the journalists assigned to stake out my side of the office. Can't wait to see you guys." And who is Sean Caston? Is Sean Caston a reporter? Sean Caston is a congressman from Illinois. So, it's just whatever. Santos can never admit that he is just twisted the truth left and right, mostly right, and not right in a correct way, but right toward the right side of the aisle. So, oh no, JoJo Fringers has been locked out of her Twitter account again by Twitter. Okay. And Twitter's saying again they can't verify it's her. What a shame. And those of you having migraines, I hope you get to feeling much better. This is the part of the show. And Nick, you still here? Because Nick loves this part of this show. You still out there, Nick Rich? Elizabeth, I'm sorry that both you and Benny have these migraines. Yeah, he left and he went back and forth, Jim. I don't know if he was going to come back. Yeah. Anyway, usually near the end of the show, we talk about rockets and all that sort of thing. So there's a possible rocket launch in Florida on Thursday. So we just see, if Nick pops in here and asks for full details. But pretty much that's all the topics for this week. Unless the producers throw a few more at me. And unless somebody says, well, I saw that you were going to talk about this and we didn't talk about that, I could pull something back up that we discussed earlier. But pretty much everything has been discussed for this show. And we're getting down to the last 15 minutes. So we might have another here. '49ers beat the Cowboys. Was that the outcome you wanted, Trucker John? Hope so. So now, after railing against the vaccine every day for almost 3 years, Silka suggesting Diamond died from the vaccine. When exactly did she supposedly take something that she was screaming to her audience was a bioweapon from Globalist? Diamond and Silk. According to Fox News, President Trump said he would take the vaccine first. There is no denying we love our president, but we are urging the president not to take anything that involves Bill Gates. Why? Because he's not a doctor or a scientist. This is on July 23rd, 2020. And also on August 13th, 2020, pay attention, Americans, Jim Crow Joe and phony Kamala Harris. These are their words. Want to mandate masks nationwide. If these two get in office, it won't be long before they start pushing to mandate vaccines for something that therapeutics medicines can help, and with a 98% recovery rate. Again, that is their words from 2020. That's their disinformation. From 2/3/21 or February 3rd, 2021, just looked at Tyler Perry's YouTube special called COVID-19 Vaccine and the Black Community, one word, sickening. That was their words. On 7/20 said, vaccines are not cures, our bodies are choice. So those were all of their words regarding the vaccine. So there's your proof. What was the vax threaded onto her? Which is one conspiracy? Was it put in her salad dressing, which is something Michael Flynn talked about in the past? How exactly did a fanatical anti-vaxxer who said she would never take a dye from the vaccine? Going back and watching it again, Soko's clearly going with the shedding conspiracy. She's saying that Diamond was poisoned by coming into contact with vaccinated people, with Donald Trump standing right next to her. And we all know that it's likely that Trump himself got the vaccine.
The rest of the animals. So technically, and according to the science, it doesn't matter if you're vaxxed or not. As long as the gain of function allows one injected person to transfer and infect another person, and that person infect another person, eventually everyone will be affected in one way or the other.
There she goes with her disinformation. More disinformation. Lots of us are fans of Hal Sparks. So one of Hal Sparks' projects is called Nerd Halen. And one of our own, Trucker John, was at the concert last night. So we have a little snippet of that. Thanks to Trucker John. So I hope that was good. I hope that didn't come out too loud. I wasn't sure. If it was too loud and you can't watch it, I'll have to bring it back up again. Yeah, that's why, don't show a whole thing. So, yep. Thank you. So we're getting near the end of the show. because I've been doing this for 3 hours, and that's about all I can do for tonight. And we're going to deal with the rocket launch, and I told that Nick Rich that we had a rocket launch coming up on Thursday, probably. I know that we're expecting a crewed launch coming up on the 26th of February. So February 26th, I think, is the date for the crewed launch. So there's all that coming up. There's possibly more launches coming up in Florida, but a lot of them are in kind of a state of limbo regarding like which ones are coming up next, because my sources are third-party sources, and for a while there they were saying that like multiple launches were all on the 30th, when in reality only one can be. So that's just what's going on. So anyway, that's 3 hours worth, folks, and I'm going to wind this one down for this week. We'll be back next week with more topics and more discussion. So tune in next week for Freedom of Speech and You. I'm Ken, and I'll be your host next week. Thanks. Bye.